Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
April Fool's Day there, making a fool of you today, James, with a Tuesday deadline, 1,000,001 streams, pods to record. So yes, plenty going on today with a Tuesday deadline.
I did tweet out this morning and say I was thinking of doing a joke saying content's cancelled today, but I knew no one would believe me. So
Yeah. I think we're beyond it now with April Fool's Day. We're just a bunch of suspicious people now,
yeah,
cynical, suspicious, don't
yeah.
believe what you see.
Who's going to
Um,
tweet at like 11:30 in the morning? Oh my God, City v Villa's
Booner.
gone into game week
Booner.
36. Like, who's
Who
going to do
else?
that?
Booner. There's only one. It's Booner.
We should no, there's plenty of people out there. We should timestamp this. It's currently 20 past 10 in the morning UK time on April Fool's, Tuesday, April the 1st. At the time of recording, we do not yet have an announcement on game week 33 fixtures. We are going to kind of work this podcast based on the projections as they stand. Are you going to get information today? I don't
Yes.
know. You
No,
think
I
yes,
mean
yeah?
the statistical probability is high because every time we record shows like this, information comes out just after. So based on historic, James, I'm gonna say yes, we are gonna get news. But let's
I
see.
I
Let's
don't
wait
think
and
we
see.
will.
Mm. Busy old day for everybody at the old Premier League. This pod,
Can I just
go
add
on.
on to that? I do. I've seen it. There is a lot of assumptions going on, and it does scare me that if the projections are wrong, and as covered yesterday, it's not. None of it's 100%, and I see so many presumptions going on, and it worries me that people maybe don't quite understand what the possibilities are. Yes, it is probable that City, Villa, and Arsenal Palace is going into 33, but I'd suggest that I don't think it's gospel.
It's all about the power of TV as well that people need to have a think
As
about
discussed.
yesterday. Good. Right. We're talking about people on wildcard in game week 30, i.e., now, and what that might look like in this episode of Chip Talk, considering the other chips that are available and what you might also have to think about, whether it's Bench Boost 32, whether it's Bench Boost 33, whether you have your free hit in your pocket for game week 34, and so on.
Yeah, I think this is still, even if you're not wildcarding this way, I still think this is a pretty valuable conversation because we run through kind of looking at some other weeks and stuff.
I mean, still
And
making transfers, and the players that you might be targeting are the same players that you would be if you were not on wildcard.
yeah, kind of. And you might have a mini league rival who's on a wild card this week, and you think, I wonder what they're going to do. It might be dependent on their chip strategy. Firstly, just confirm as well, Clayton is absolutely fine. We did advertise Clayton to be on this podcast, but he's busy with his studying, so Suj is with us.
Indeed.
Going to have a look at a few different options. Going to have a look at setting now to bench boosting 32, which I'll make no apologies for. I like. And that would probably lead towards a free hit in game week 34. I think you can still get some balance of a good game week 33 as we'll look at. We're going to look at setting now to bench boost in game week 33. I think inevitably that probably needs a free hit in 34 afterwards. We look at something different, which involves setting to run through and just free hitting in 33. Interestingly, it still lands quite similar, actually. Also going to have a look at an idea for people who've got no free hit left. And I think that can be set, by the way, to get a pretty good bench boost in 32. And then we're just going to finish with a look at a free hit if you were free hitting this week, which I presume not many are going to do, but it'll give you an idea of some good 1 week punts because we know many of you are then going to follow up on wildcard in 31. And we're going to do this kind of process again on Friday. This time definitely with Clates with a different set of eyes and look at what might change because it is incredible how much things change. When you think about, I think I said on Friday's Ask James stream, so just said like, if Haaland gets injured over the weekend, you're going to be smashing out your teams.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's what I said, and that's pretty much what's happened. So Marmoush went from someone who I think was of interest to people on Friday to now like, I've got to have him,
Essential.
like pretty much basically. So
Yeah. And
it's gone as
understandable.
far as so many people are going to captain him this week, and I'm not going to tell anybody not to. The team, for those of you on YouTube that you're looking at, is a wildcard team, and it's set to potentially look towards bench boosting in game week 32. For those of you on the audio, the visual is going to help you if you want to have a look at the video on YouTube, but we'll try and do this so it is still very viable for you as an audio. So I'll tell you what we've got in here, and this is set to potentially bench boost in game week 32. And I think, Suj, this will look similar to what a lot of people are seeing online, but also a little bit different. I think one of the complaints I'm seeing from people at the moment is, oh, all the wildcard teams look the same. Well, unfortunately, when you got City playing Leicester, Palace playing Southampton, they both got doubles to come. What do you expect?
Yeah.
And the kind of Haaland versus Salah debate has been completely taken out. I think there's four players I've got here, Suj, who land in every draft that I look at, that we're going to look at here. It's Salah. Can't really make a case not to,
No. Yeah.
despite no
Agreed.
doubles, not to put him in. And for me, the front three is the same everywhere I landed.
Okay.
Mateta, Marmoush, and Isak.
Yep.
That's not for people who've got, say, Evan Nilsson. I think that's absolutely great for this week. It's not you should be in a position to panic. I think you're there, aren't you? So you're on Evan Nilsson. But I think I would
I've
still
got
go.
eyes on. He's going to Mateta by the time we get to 32.
Would you? I mean, I would still, even if this will show you at the end, but I would still go Isak this week over Evan Nilsson.
And majority of people will have value built up in Isak as well, which we have to
Yeah.
be aware of. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read this team out for you. So Sanchez in goal, home to Tottenham. Some of us think that'll be a clean sheet. Back three of Munoz, Gabriel, and Vardy. Midfield four of Salah, Palmer, Cliver, Ismail Assar. Up front, that front three of Mateta, Marmoush, Isak. On the bench, Verbruggen, Ilanga, Kieran Trippier, and Nico Williams. I'd bench boost that this week actually, but obviously you can't do both. And you probably kind of get the idea of where this is going. So, I mean, is there anything on that you reflect on and think is kind of like really questionable or anything such?
Took me through Sanchez in goal. Is that purely because in 32 they've got Ipswich? Is
Pretty
that a big
much,
driver? Mm.
pretty much, basically, yeah. It's not ideal in the sense you probably don't have a doubler for a keeper in 33. But I still think it's okay. And obviously you can make a transfer in 33 if you want to
Yeah.
go and get a keep with a double. So yeah, he was trying to pair something that left money. I mean, this team's actually got 1.6 million in the bank in terms of what I've got of my own squad value. So like if you had a preference of Eze over Sar, you could do that. But there's a pretty clear reason why there's some money in the bank. I think, yeah, it's about having something that looks good as single game week goalkeeper for game week 32. And Sanchez and Verbruggen, respectively, have Ipswich and Leicester at home.
Yeah. Understandable. Absolutely.
Ideally, yes, we'd want goalkeepers with doubles, etc. But I think actually, if you're setting now, the best three on Palace on Wildcard doesn't have Dean Henderson in it for me. It's Munoz, Mateta plus one of the midfielders would be best three. I know I said to you on our Patreon pod this morning, our Palace correspondent Rory McLaughlin-Dowd actually quite likes the idea of going double Palace defence. So you could go that way, right? I think what I'll do is I'll show you, Suj, how we'd maybe move this to game week 32. Now, this is with a planned one transfer in. And factoring in that my team that I'm setting as per the images on FPL team only has one free transfer available at the moment. So it's wildcard now, make one free transfer in game week 31. The reason for 31 specifically is to put one of Gordon or Murphy in. So I think leave Cliver for Ipswich at home. Gordon's obviously suspended this week, and then move that once you've got more information on Gordon, ideally, if he's available. If he's not, because obviously he did come off injured for England, then you go Jacob Murphy. The Murphy route obviously allows you more power to add different things in 33 once you've got 32
Saka
out the way.
or what have you. I mean, the price differential between Palmer and Saka isn't a monster anyway, but it does give you that little bit of wiggle room.
So this would be set to bench boost in 32. I've done this based on assuming Anthony Gordon is available. So you're putting Gordon in the team in place of Justin Cliver. 31, attack 31, Leicester away, then the double. So you've obviously got your six doublers in place, three from Palace, three from Newcastle. Kieran Trippier is affordable here. Again, if he's not, you save what 1.5 million going Livermore, or at least 1 million or so, I think. So same team as for the 30 team, but Trippier now in the 11. I've put it in over Vardy.
Yeah, you would. You'd play the doubler with 2 home games over Guardiola.
I say Vardy kind of questionable, Vardy or Gabriel. take your pick. But by essence, we're putting one of these two players on the bench. So the bench boost 32 team under that wild card with the one transfer made for the Newcastle player. Verbruggen at home to Leicester. Elanga and Nico Williams at home to Everton. Vardy at home to Palace.
I mean, yeah, all home fixtures, decent.
I think
It's
that looks all
decent.
right. Now, there are several variations of this, right? So, for example, you could, as said, you go Livramento instead of Trippier, and you can go something more powerful where you go Elanga up to a midfielder like in the 7 million range or something. There's different ways of doing this. You could probably even, scrimp and scrape if you want and go like Livramento and Murphy, and you can afford to probably put Saka in there somewhere, for
Well, I
example,
mean, you
maybe
could, if you
instead.
went down to Livramento, could you get Ismail Assar up to Eze potentially instead of Sar
Yeah,
if you fancied that?
yeah, if you prefer it, yeah. I think, to be honest, with Sarr and Eze, I feel like it's close enough. You made a good point on our Patreon pod this morning about something you heard late rise to say on the
Mm.
FPL wire about if it's close enough and you're looking longer term, maybe Sarr is worth the saving versus Eze.
Yeah, you might want the
Also,
money for something else. Mm.
also reflect on the data pod we did last week, where there was good evidence for Eze, but there was also some very good evidence for Ismail Sarr on that podcast as
Yeah.
well. So I feel like that downgrade is fine. Arguably, it's not. I mean, Saar does feel like he could outscore Eze, but the sun is shining, I can tell you, Suj, and it is now April. So, how would this land in game week 33, assuming you left out? And obviously, you've got one free transfer there, of course, to potentially
Yep.
make something better there if you wanted to do so as well. This is the team for game week 33 untouched. And I think it looks fine, right? So you've got a full complement of doublers defensively. Munoz, Gabriel, Vardiol. You've got Saar, Mateta, and Marmoush with the double. I think Salah away to Leicester is absolutely perfectly reasonable for a single game week fixture. Palmer and Isak would be disposable, and one of them can obviously find you some money potentially.
Well, Palmer to Saka is, if he's fit and all guns, is a no-brainer for that week.
Well, you could see that being one, couldn't you? Palmer to
Mm.
Saka, and then you could you go up to maybe Sanchez to Raya maybe, or you might make a choice to go like Trippier towards Saliba or something. So I mean, you can also take hits here as well. So there's two free transfers there to get you up to 9 doublers.
That's good.
I think it's fine, man. Particularly if you or 8 doublers, sorry. Particularly if you got Salah and Isak for single game at fixtures. I know Isak's away to Villa, but he's still Isak. He's one of
Yeah.
the best players in the game. Salah away to Leicester, fine. I think as we stand, Marmoush is probably could well be the standout captaincy now for game week 33, with Haaland obviously confirmed out injured for, I would guess, probably at least the rest of this month, judging by Man City's statement last night. So it still lands fine for game week 33. Now, you've got a choice here as well, because what you've got to factor in, let's say that the Arsenal Palace and the City Villa games do go in this week. Obviously, if you commit to more doublers, you're putting yourself in more trouble for game week 34. Now, I ask you, if you left it like this, with Sanchez and Palmer away to Fulham, Gordon and Isak away to Villa, and Salah away to Leicester, with the other doublers, does that feel terrible to you?
No, considering what's going to happen the week after, where if, like, for Palmer to Saka, for example, you're only digging yourself a bigger hole for the week after. So if you don't have the free hit or the wild card to come out of this, you might want to consider leaving some of these players in, even though they don't have a double. A double in that week, because they do have a fixture the week after. So you don't have to fix it. Yeah, it's not terrible at all.
So you could make if you make the heavy commitment here to the doublers, the bigger problem you leave yourself in 34. Now you could make a heavy commitment here and go, I'm going to free hit 34. What I just wanted to show you with this team is if you didn't touch it, what it could look like in 34. Now, again, this is based on the projection of Forest Brentford currently staying in 34, and that would be quite important. I'm not as confident on that, as I said yesterday, as I am on the other two games going into 33. If you didn't make any transfers in 33 and just left that, you'd have three free transfers available for 34 with, in theory, 8 players. And I would say the 8 players are pretty good. And I just wanted to highlight this to bear it in mind for people. So you would have treble Newcastle, Trippier, Gordon, Isak home to Ipswich, Salah at home to Tottenham,
Yep.
Williams and Elanga at home to Brentford, Sanchez at home to Everton. Right. I don't think it's impossible that these players landed in a game week 34 free hit. So just wanted to highlight that because it might be that you think, actually, if it does go shit tits up for game week 36, 37, the free hit might be better served later on. I suspect what would happen though is you get to 33 and you'd be like, I've got to put more doublers in. And then ultimately you're leaving yourself with what, 4 or 5 players for game week 34
Yeah,
on
which isn't
this?
ideal. And that's if that fixture for Brentford and Forest is in there. If it's not, you're in an even bigger hole.
So I think if you are setting for a bench boost 32, and I really like it by the way, I think you are probably looking to free hit in game week 34. I think it's still quite nice where you can manipulate to go 32 to 33 and looks okay. You do not have to select the players I've chosen. Obviously, there are different versions of this. For example, Yankuba Minta at home to
Hmm.
Leicester, someone you could say, right, that's my eight for Taka, play him against Leicester. Something like that feels a bit dodgy to know, will he play in 2.5 weeks when there are other players like Adingra, Gruder who could play instead. So I tried to go a little bit safer, I think, with the selections. And Nico Williams obviously has said yesterday he's suspended for the FA Cup semi-final as well. So there isn't really any reason to think that he wouldn't keep playing. What would be different if we were set into bench boost 33? So few differences here. Um, Palace 3 the same. So Munoz, Sarr, Mateta. But at Newcastle 3, I think different. Having to commit to it now. I've gone Isak, Murphy, Livramento. Because I think just psychologically, if you are planning now for a game week that is 3 weeks away for the bench boost, the less you do between now and then, the better in terms of your actual, I want to plan this transfer and I want to plan that transfer because we know what will happen between now and game week 33. Something will go wrong. You're very lucky if it doesn't, or at least your opinion on something will probably change. Oh, I don't want that player. He's now out of form. Chances are you're going to get an injury this stage of the season that probably impacts this. So there's a few other differences. For example, I put Saka in now rather than Palmer, thinking for the same thing. Because I think ultimately you are going to want him in for game week 33.
Yep.
So little differences to this. So I've gone double Arsenal defence now on this wildcard 30, prepping to bench boost 33. So Raya and Gabriel. Still Munoz and Vardy in now. Midfield four, bit of differences here. So Salah, Sarr, Saka in instead of Palmer. And again, thinking about 33, I've actually put Jared Bowen in. That's thinking about West Ham's fixture against Southampton. If I'm going to bench boost with single game week players, I definitely want something offensive against Southampton when he is a very capable player who can go off.
Yep.
Up front, same usual suspects, Mateta, Marmo, Isak. On the bench, Areola, again, thinking about that Southampton game. Murphy, Livramento has said, and I put Esri Konsa in. I looked at a few different versions here, and I was trying to make it work with Martinez in goal because that felt a bit safer, and then Saliba in defence instead. That's the only other Arsenal one I think I'd want to commit to at the moment, considering Ben White's obviously available again. So Timber feels sketchy. Lewis Skelly to midfielder, so he can't pick that up. And I just felt that this landed better to have the money in the bank rather than trying to force Martinez in. So ultimately, you want at least one of them double keepers, don't you? I think. The different way I look at you could go Henderson instead, right? You could go Henderson here and go, right, well, I'm going to go Saliba instead of Munoz, for example. There's different combinations there that work, but I just wanted to show something a bit different. So I put Esri Konsa in to acknowledge that Villa have a double, and I guess he, as an outfield player, he's as likely as any of them to play twice.
Yep.
And he's cheap. So I wanted to show you how this would look going into game week 32 without touching it, just to show you that there is a case to say that this might be bench boostable as well, even just
In
doing this
32,
naturally. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't.
Liverpool away for West Ham.
Yeah, but you don't pick West Ham players, right? You just pick two different players.
Okay. Yep.
So it can look a little bit similar to what we've done. We've essentially sacrificed money in the Newcastle area, and you've obviously put in more players that don't force you to make as many transfers in 33. So that is something to factor in. I think you wouldn't go Areola and Bowen if you were going to set that to bench boost 32. But this would be a good reason not to bench boost in 32. I would not want to bench boost with a goalkeeper who's got Liverpool away as a single
Yep.
fixture.
Yep.
Bowen is a good player, but don't want to bench boost him away to Liverpool. But you do see the other two and think Vardio and Konsa, it's not bad.
Hmm.
What I'm saying is you could land here and go, shit, if I just take out Areola and Bowen, this is a great bench boost as well. Now, the problem with Villa players for 32 is to go to Southampton, so it's a great fixture, rotation hell potentially. Either someone like Konsa, because they play PSG 3 days before and 3 days afterwards. So I think still set. You're running fine through game week 32. Treble Arsenal, treble Palace, treble Newcastle, Salah against West Ham, Marmoush against Crystal Palace. So you committed to what, 5 teams there across
Yep.
that. Now to show you then to game week 33. Now I've left this untouched with no transfers put in. So this is just to read out the bus team. So you've got Raya, Gabriel, Saka, obviously for a potential Arsenal double. You got Munoz, Sarr, Mateta for Palace second double. Vardio, Marmoush for Manchester City's potential double. You've got Jared Bowen against Southampton, Mohamed Salah against Leicester, and Ezri Konsa's potential double against Newcastle and Man City. Now, as an 11, I think that's pretty strong. One thing I want to highlight here, which I think people be screaming about, is but you've only got 2 Manchester City players. Right. There's only 2 Manchester City players that are of interest to me at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing is that you've also got transfers.
Correct.
You do have transfers.
So if you landed here and thought, oh my God, shit, I really want to force a Foden or Savinho in because their form now looks better, or even Kevin De Bruyne, like you can do it, right?
Yep.
The bench that's bust here, I think, as putting the 4 weakest based on what's available there, because I would not bench Jared Bowen against Southampton, is Areola at home to Southampton, and the 3 Newcastle players, Isak, Murphy, Livramento away to Villa. Now, with 3 free transfers, if you haven't touched this by 33, you can remove those 3 Newcastle players.
Yep.
And go to what you want. And Isak will act as a little bit like a money maker, I think, for you. So you're thinking, well, how do I get from Murphy to like Savinho if that's who you choose or you want? Well, it's going to be Isak down. The problem with that is I do think it'll probably have to be to a forward that's got a single game week fixture. Watkins will appeal potentially at this point, right?
Yeah.
Isak to Watkins, but is that going to open up enough money? It might. Remember, this has got 1.4 in the bank based on my team. Some of you might have more value in the bank, right? Some of you less. So maybe Isak to Watkins, could that do enough to go Murphy to Savinho? Probably does.
Okay.
And then you're looking at Livramento to, I don't know, another cheaper, or you just leave it. Remember, this is set to obviously free hit in game week 34 because it will look that will obviously, you can see that it will look like, if you take the Newcastle players out, that is a complete mess for 34, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to free hit.
Yep.
Having looked at those 2 options, bench boost 32, 33, and I know you kind of haven't decided just generally with your team what you want to do, which way yet. What kind of piques your interest here?
As it stands with this game week, this wildcard that you've just put together, I already have Munoz, Gabriel, and Rico Lewis. I know it's a downgrade on Gvardiol, but I do have a City defender. I've already got Salah. I've already got Bowen. I've already got plans to get Saka. I've already got Marmoush. I've already got plans to get Mateta and Isak. I would have 8 out of this 15, 8 or 9 out of this 15 anyway. I've got other players like Morgan Rogers as my Villa potential double. We know he's indestructible and plays every game, and what have you. So I think 33 is looking more and more likely for me because I won't have to use as many transfers to get towards a good 33 team. I also think I might just go with 2 Newcastle for the double in 32 to not give myself a bigger headache for 33. Like I think I definitely want Isak. I'm happy with Murphy. I don't feel I need a defensive asset particularly. So I guess I'm kind of looking still towards 33. I think Henderson over Raya could work for me if I decided I didn't want to go with Sarr and have Morgan Rogers in his place. And that would mean I went with a Henderson and Saliba combination for your Raya and Konsa combination, for example. Still got double Arsenal defense and the extra Crystal Palace player there. So, yeah, I think there's enough options there. I think it just makes me think, don't break the team for a future game week for, like, I don't need triple Newcastle for 32 if it screws me over for 33 and 34, for example.
And then one caveat to that, I think across the two double game weeks of 32 and 33, we can't know quite what happened at the end yet. And there may be no doubles after 33. That's possible. I would say Arsenal's double is the best. So across the six potential doubles across 32 and 33, I'd say Arsenal's double 33 is the best. No confliction. I know they've got Champions League beforehand. Okay, but then playing Ipswich away on a Sunday, 4 days after Madrid, and then Palace at home on a Wednesday. A Palace who may well rotate, as covered. I think that's probably the best double. But I think Newcastle 32 is the next best, just by virtue of having two home games.
Yep.
Then I think it's probably City with the Everton away and Villa home games. Remember, they got three midweek beforehand. Then, presuming if the Villa game is the Tuesday, a 5 day gap to their semi final. They shouldn't rotate too much, but we know City have the capability to do that, right?
Yep.
I think if you said anyone now, right, tell me with Haaland out what City's best 11, you may very well come up with a different answer to Guardiola. And it's not to say he wouldn't rotate a Saturday and Tuesday schedule anyway. If you were to wildcard now, Suj, do you think you would head for a bench boost 32 or a bench boost 33?
If I was to wildcard, with no free hit or with a free hit?
Let's assume with, because I've looked at two paths here, which ideally wants to free hit in 34. I think like if you head, to be honest, if you are heading to a bench boost 33 and going heavy on it, like this shows, you really need that free hit 34. You don't need it so much with a bench boost 32.
I'm gonna say 33. I like the Liverpool fixture, the West Ham fixture, but I don't think it's much in it. There's pros and cons for both, James.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah,
And I know that 90% of people are just going to be 33. As I keep saying, look at the alternative for 32. Just consider it. It's closer, and you factually know at the moment what it is going to look like. I'm still a bit scared. The good news, as covered yesterday, is, if Arsenal Palace doesn't take place in 33, I think they've both still got reasonable fixtures. But it kind of busses out what you want. Why were you looking at it in the first place? It is knowing I can have all these doublers. And because you can only have a maximum of 12 doublers in 33 anyway, you've got to have some single game week fixtures. It is inevitable that people are going to land in game week 33 with Newcastle players.
yep.
Inevitable. And you might think, well, Villa away is fine. It's still in the Champions League. They've got other things on their mind, maybe. Yeah, get all that. But I don't think you want a bench boost with like Murphy and Livramento away to a team that hasn't lost at home since August. Maybe they lose at home in months beginning with A.
Would it be April? It still would be, wouldn't it, for 33?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, there we go then.
34 is still in April.
Yeah.
Pick your poison on that. I would say as well, because I've had a few people say, what would you do if you're wild carding now to bench boost in 36? And I'm like, thank God I don't have hair.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long way away to keep your team intact and not know what even the fixtures are going to be.
Ultimately, you would choose a path and then you deviate based on the semi-final results.
Yeah.
So you're looking at balance. But then also, I think you would end up naturally going heavy to Palace and not to Villa at the moment. I'm sure there will be teams knocking about putting 3 Villa players on wildcard, but I think it's way too complicated with them at the moment. Free Palace you'll definitely want, right? So then if it's Villa in the final rather than Palace and then Villa double 36, what you just deviating your Palace players to your Villa? What I'm saying is I don't think you're going to have a split of like 6v6 or 3v3 and you go, right, it's Villa in the final, I'll sell my Palace players. Or it's Palace in the final, I'll sell my Villa players. Because I don't think you'll go in 3 of each, I don't think. Easier to do with the other one maybe with City Forest a little bit, but it's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, I think with Forest players, you could certainly look at bench boosting them in 32. Would kind of be the point.
Yep.
So they're good to bench, and I guess you would bench them probably in 33. Yes, Tottenham a bit shit, but probably bench boosting with the likes of Williams away the Tottenham feels a bit crap. So you could set them and then but then I think, right, Forest beat City. What are you doing? You're selling all your City players before they play like Wolves and Southampton in 35 and 36. Like, no, if you've committed to it, you've committed to it. I hate it. I'm really sorry. I really hope it works out for people who bench boost at the end, but I really don't like it. And I've been pretty clear on that. It may be a complete washout with no doubles at all. I want to look at a slightly different route, Suj, and this is kind of based on free hitting in game week 33. And I think there's a group of people who are intent on doing that. They're intent on doing it because they believe, and it's fine, that they want to use the free hit in 33 aggressively in the double game week. And
Okay.
I get that completely. So I wanted to put a wildcard team together that tried to ignore it. And this is what happens, which essentially is the same thing. So the wildcard team would still be, this is what I put together. Sanchez and Areola as the keepers. Munoz, Gabriel, Kirkez, Trippier, Agbadu as an enabler, partly because they've got Leicester at home in game week 34, so that falls quite nice. Salah, Palmer, Eze, Cliver, Gordon, I think straight in, and then same front three, Mateta, Marmoush, Isak. Because ultimately, you cannot help but look and go, well, I've definitely got to have Marmoush, shouldn't I, with the City situation. Remember, this is only one City, but you're still going to end up with compliments of Palace and Newcastle and Salah. And I still think
Yeah.
we want an Arsenal defensive.
Yeah.
So it brings more appeal more to the Bournemouth players again, I think, i.e. keeping them in most cases. I just found that if I was playing the wild card now to specifically free hit in game week 33, I just wouldn't be landing that far away.
Yeah. Looking at it. And that team has what, one, two, three, four, five, nine players in 34 that have a fixture.
Yeah. So to show you how that would look in game week 34 with no transfers, so leaving you with free transfers, that's based on using the chip, obviously in 33, the free hits, you don't build anything. So you're running through 234, no changes, leaves you nine players for 34. And again, for free hit, it looks fine, right? So triple Newcastle,
Yep.
Trippier, Gordon, Isak against Ipswich, Salah against Tottenham, Palmer against Everton, double Bournemouth, Kirkes, Clive against Man United, Agbadu at home to Leicester, Sanchez at home to Everton, right? So that's nine, they're all at home. I mean, it's
Yep.
viable that they would maybe be part of a free hit. And obviously at this point, you've got free transfers to do what you want
Fix it
to
up.
make that 11. I think at this point, it probably would be sacrifice the Palace players,
Yep.
actually,
Yep.
and probably leave Gabriel for sort of Bournemouth at home 35, maybe Southampton, the Newcastle Southampton games in 37, 38. So, like, it's viable, but I don't see where I'd be landing that different from a
Yeah.
wild card
There's a lot of
perspective.
similarity here, isn't there?
Does this route feel better?
No, but it also
No,
doesn't feel like particularly worse. It's not particularly worse, but there's no big upside in doing this, in my opinion.
no, agreed. The other thing with this that's worth noting is after this, in game week 35, Newcastle go to Brighton, Bournemouth go to Arsenal, um, Palace fixture against Nottingham Forest, not so bad. So maybe you might even want to look at taking something else out. But I think you won't land as well going into 35 afterwards either.
Right.
We've mentioned Bournemouth, Newcastle, Arsenal. The fixtures in that run towards the end aren't great. We spoke yesterday about even free hitting in 38 and use the example of those three teams saying like, look, they're 35 to 37 is pretty bog.
Yep.
And you're stuck with quite a bit of this to then move into 35. So I don't love that idea strategy. If people want to free hit 33 and then the wild card and afterwards, because they're set up so well now, like they're bench boosting 32, want to free hit 33 and then wild card 34 for the end, don't mind that sort of route. There's nothing wrong with free hitting 33. I just don't like this route, particularly in terms of it lands okay for 34. I think afterwards is potentially a bit of a bigger problem. Regular one to look at next, Such, is no free hit left. How do I get through this shit with no free hit left? And guess what? It lands very similar again.
The same.
Why
Yeah.
why do the wildcard teams look so similar? Well, because almost irrespective of your strategy, you still can't help but want to attack the free promoted teams. So in this one, with no free hit left, don't overlook the obvious of Henderson, Sarr, Mateta away to Southampton, Vardy, Mamouche against Leicester, Kirkes, Cliver against Ipswich, which still, for the rest of that bus team for this week on the wild card, Gabriel at home to Fulham, Salah at home to Everton, Palmer at home to Tottenham, Isak at home to Brentford. This has a bench of Verbruggen, Murphy, Livramento, Nico Williams. There is nothing here that looks wildly different to what you've seen elsewhere. And I want to show you
Literally
something.
nothing.
Not really, no. It's just
Yeah.
setting it quite differently. And I didn't do this on purpose. I was thinking a little bit more longer term about Bournemouth players are better to carry through if you're not worrying about a bench boost. And I think keeping Forest in mind, but with Wood absent, the only Forest attack I'd really kind of consider, you could go one of Elanga or Hudson-Odoi if you wanted to. But I don't know why under the circumstance I'd pick that over Murphy at the moment, personally. This, by the way, this team has 2.9 million in the bank. So it has the ability to move and be aggressive come game week 33, should you want to do so. I want to show you how this team would look in game week 32 without touching it. So it's treble Newcastle, treble Palace, double City against Palace themselves,
Palace.
Palmer against Ipswich, Salah against West Ham, and the bench for Bruggen against Leicester, Kirkes and Cliver home to Fulham, Williams at home to Everton. That is also bench boostable, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. That's not too far off where I might end up, James. Um, I'm actually looking at this and thinking, how do I get to as close to that as possible? My biggest frustration with my bench boost is not having a decent second keeper.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does bug. The keeper feels like the worst one. Like say you had Areola and you're looking at Areola away to Liverpool, you're like, oh, can't. It's horrible. I get it. Like if you were looking at this week and you had Pickford away to Liverpool, if you were bench boosting this week, you're like, oh, it looks horrible. I get it. It feels like the worst one to look at is a shit goalkeeper on a bench boost. I do get that.
yeah,
I would say this is very strong advice for people. If you are wildcarding now and do not have a free hit left and you are aiming to bench boost, please look at doing it in game week 32. You are going to find your life so much easier than 33. The same team set for 33. We are now looking at the exact same bench for Bruggen away to Brentford, Murphy and Livramento away to Villa, Nico Williams away to Tottenham. Right. That's like night and day in terms of which week to bench boost in, isn't it?
yep,
It's so obviously 32. And
yep.
that's not rigged. I think the 11 that are picked in the 11 is still the best 11, by the way. And you can make free transfers here where you might want to move on, say like Kirkes, Cliver, add in a couple of doublers, and then you carry like Salah, Palmer, Isak as singlers, or the obvious move is obviously Palmer to Saka, right? You go Palmer to Saka, take your two Bournemouth players out, you're just left with Salah, Isak, singlers. You bench boosted 32, you're balanced for 33, also showing it in terms of game week 34. If you've not made any transfers, if you just left it, you'd be sitting there with 9 for game week 34 with 4 free transfers. So you could add 2 doublers for 33, and then you'd be looking at what, a -8 to then get you back to a full complement of 11 in 34. Or you could go, right, I'm just going to go Palmer to Saka, leave it be. Free transfers gets you to 11 for game week 34, and you've actually managed the situation. I think
34 might end up being that week where it's okay to just go with 9 or go with 10.
I don't think so much.
No, you
Because
think you're going to want to get to 11 for that
yeah,
week?
I do. I think more so than say 29, because I think with 34, if you free hit in 34, you're going to look at Liverpool against Tottenham and think, right, I'm going through. Look,
Hmm.
Newcastle against Ipswich, I'm going 3. And then I think once you go Chelsea home to Everton, Palmer if he's available, plus probably like a Cucurella or something. And then you even see like Wolves against Leicester. And you think, oh, Cunha's back and 8 Nori. Right, there's your 11
Right.
from like them 4 teams. And you can still go Bournemouth players against Manchester United, like your Cliverts and stuff like that. Or even Fulham have got Southampton away. So like Anthony Robinson instead or something, right? Or Jimenez or Munez if one's fit and the other's absent, or Leno in goal. I think, yeah, a free hit 34, what I would say is it will look great. It will look aggressive. It will look like an all-in strategy. It will look great. You can manage it though to get through this. I think what Ross said, FPL Rats, and Ross won't be the only person who said this, but I heard Ross say it on one of his streams, is essentially if you don't have the free hit left, you have to know you are highly likely taking hits between 33 and 34.
Okay.
It's obvious, isn't it? Really. You're going to look at 33 then and go, I could have an amazing team here, but if I overcommit to it, I've got to take hits to get back to 34. Now, those hits might be justifiable, right? Because think about it. Let's say you went, just hypothetically, went Isak, Watkins, and Palmer to Saka in 33. Would it then be worth a -4 to reverse those 2 transfers for 34, considering the 2 fixtures they've got? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, highly likely.
It
Yeah.
is. So taking hits over that period, absolutely fine as well. But I just wanted to show, because it's a regular one, how do I get through this if I don't have a free hit left? Well, there's an example, and you can bench boost in 32, I think, on that path as well. Get rid of it rather than struggling to, well, with 36 is like this, and none of us can know right now exactly what 35 to 37 is going to look like. So we're all going to have to react. For most of us, it is going to look shit. The majority of teams I see wildcarding at the moment, including many of these drafts that I've done, are going to really struggle across 35 to 37, I think. They're not going to look
Right.
great. But everyone's going to be in that together. That's because there's so many of the stronger teams are playing each other. Just to finish, boss, you can pick this apart. I don't recommend anyone does this because I don't think anybody should be in a bad enough position, but I put together a free hit game week 30 draft. I have, I think, 8 of this 11 this week. So I've gone Raya in goal, and I've gone Raya in goal because I think it's more exciting to have Munoz, Vardiol, Kirkes than Gabriel and one of the other keepers. I would want a coverage of those 4 teams defensively this week, personally. Salah, Palmer, Cliver, Eze in midfield. Up front, you know the 3, Mateta, Marmoush, Isak. On the bench, I put Neto as cover for Arsenal, Semenyo against Ipswich, Diaz as cover for if Vardiol no shows, Milenkovic against Manchester United. That should highlight those who perhaps want some good 1 week punts. It's not going to be anything you weren't expecting, right? If you want a 1 week punt, it's Palace player or Marmoush, isn't it? Or maybe a Foden or a Savinho or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Nielsen, I think you could chuck in with Ipswich as well as a home fixture. Um, yeah, like I've got Arsenal coverage in Gabriel instead of your Raya. I've got Rico Lewis instead of Guardiol. But I've got Munoz, Salah, Palmer, Semenyo, Marmoush, Isak. It's much of a muchness really here. I don't think we'll see much variance unless one particular player goes off big with a 15-pointer or a 20-pointer.
Yeah, just to note that something we discussed on our last 2 Patreon podcasts, so the public viewers and listeners won't have heard this. I think Saka starts for Arsenal tonight. I think Saka starts for Arsenal tonight based on 2 things. One, the positivity in Arteta's comments. And I know there's whatever Arteta said, think the opposite will happen. But I think about lots of stuff I heard when Mickey van der Ven came back from for Tottenham with his hamstring injury, which was bad. And the idea being that it's better to start than be a substitute when you come back from a serious hamstring injury. And Bukayo Saka's missed, what, 3.5 months, I
Yeah.
think, roughly. That's serious. It's better to start with the hamstring injury and come off earlier rather than let the muscle kind of sit and tighten for an hour and a half and then come on. Now, the one caveat that's different to Saka to the Van der Ven example is, and you can feel it, the temperature is much better. But when the sun goes down, you can still feel the chill
It will still get cold at night. Yep,
a
no
little
doubt.
bit. I think he starts. And I can't promise you that, but there's a few we've looked at here in terms of just going Saka rather than Palmer. I wouldn't put people off doing that. I'm pretty convinced, by the way, that Cole Palmer does start for Chelsea on on Thursday. As far as we're aware, we think he returned to training on Friday. I think it's clear to see in the final assessment why so many wildcard teams on socials look the same. Because even when you choose different strategies, they still look fairly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. That just on the Palmer and Saka, I'm in agreement, James. I think we'll see both of them play in this midweek set of fixtures.
It would be interesting when we do this again on Friday if this is going to look
How
massively
much have
different
we
or not.
deviated? Yeah, I'm looking forward to that more than anything. Yeah,
I'd still, it's still going to be free Palace, isn't it? It's definitely going to be. I think if you go 31, it's definitely free Newcastle
yep,
because they're walking into Leicester then and then a
yep.
brilliant double. Do you cut yourself off of City a bit more? It might depend on the strategy. I think on the strategy for 31, the fixtures in 31 aren't as good as the fixtures in 32. So it might be that there's little bit more difference. Who knows? We might even look at a Tottenham player
Who
for
knows?
Southampton and Wolves as a 2-week punt.
Mm.
Don't shoot me. It'd probably be Vicario because the only one I know is going to play twice.
Nice. Listeners, with the tight turnaround, we're going to wrap it there. We'll give Patreon a shout out if you want to support the show. Patreon.com/Planet FPL, where you get additional content. You get James's fixture planning spreadsheet. You get premium access to FPL teams, so you can plan your team out, and a whole bunch of other features. You'll have heard us going on about it before. If Patreon's not your thing, that's perfectly all right as well. You just need to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Give it a thumbs up, give it a like, give it a 5-star review, or anything that helps spread the Planet FPL word. James, people listening, have they got streams to look forward to today?
Yeah, advanced tier patrons, 3 o'clock team news stream today, UK time. It might be slightly later, but that's the plan. 3 o'clock deadline stream is available for everybody at 5:15 p.m. UK time, and I'm reliably informed that Clayton will be with me for the Clayton and James show tomorrow.
Lovely jubbly, listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Remember, play it your way. Keep an eye on news for fixtures, team news, etc. Cue music, please, man shop.